China, with an area of almost 3.7 million square miles, is the third largest country by total land area. Yes, China is slightly, but still larger than the United States. The current population density of China in 2024 is about 149.03 people per 0.4 square mile, which is 0.03% lower than in 2023. Cities and towns are growing fast, but there's not enough land for development. And it's not just a shortage, it's a critical shortage, and the available land is highly valued. Wait, a large area and a lack of land? All because there are 12 deserts in China, 8 full-fledged ones, and 4 areas with so-called sandy lands. Of course, there are 2 most notable deserts. The first one is the Gobi. It's a big, cold desert located in the north of China with an area of about 500,000 square miles. The Gobi is considered the 6th largest desert in the world. Another large desert is the Taklamakan, located in the northwest. It covers an area of 130,000 square miles. So overall, China's territory is huge. But it can't all be used. These desert regions aren't suitable for construction, and naturally the population density here is very low. Around 27.2% of the country's land is taken up by different deserts, an outrageously large proportion, more than a quarter. But only recently, in November 2024, the Chinese government reported that the desert area has shrunk and now accounts for 26.8%. How did this happen? Where did the billions of tons of sand go? We'll figure it all out, but first, I'm going to make myself some coffee. Just an unobtrusive reminder to hit the like button if this slips your mind. And thanks for understanding my wish to stay anonymous. China's fighting deserts, that's clear, and this has been going on for quite some time. But it's important to understand that this is not just one project. There are a few of them. And the first thing I want to talk about is the Tarim Desert Highway built through the Taklamakan Desert. The name of this desert can roughly be translated as the abandoned place. But in folk etymology, it means you get there and never get out. And while folk etymology is usually called false, there's something quite fitting about this translation. The Taklamakan is incredibly cold in the winter and just as incredibly hot in the summer. Its extreme inland location, almost in the very heart of Asia and thousands of miles away from any open body of water, also adds to the wide daily temperature fluctuations. And in terms of area, the Taklamakan is just slightly smaller than, say, Germany. And although there are cities on the edge of the desert, they're blocked by a huge sea of sand, which makes communication between them extremely inconvenient, and thus limits the economic and social development of the entire area. It's clear that the desert can't be removed, but it's possible to build a road through it. A new highway crossing the Taklamakan Desert in the northwest of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China was opened in 2022. The highway connects the counties of Yuli and Chimo and stretches 207 miles in total, 191 miles of which run through the desert. The new highway was built with an estimated total investment of about 1.75 billion yuan. That's roughly $261.5 million, and construction began in October 2017. Right now, there are more than 750 miles of highways in China that run through the Taklamakan Desert, and these are 5 separate roads. They were all built at different times, with some being quite old. The main reason the first roads appeared in the region was the discovery of oil fields. The first road built became the northern part of the Lunmen Highway, which today stretches for 324 miles. Of that, 289 miles are in the desert, making Lunmen the longest highway in the world built on shifting sand dunes. As for the new highway, it shortened the distance between the Chimo County and Korla City by about 218 miles. This is expected to help tackle issues like long travel times, high living costs, and the struggle to get agricultural products to market. A local livestock company said it's already managed to save on transporting cattle. The trip cost nearly 1,000 yuan less per cow. That's about $137. To give you an idea, over the past few decades, the travel time from Korla to Chimo has decreased from 3 days to over 12 hours, and now it only takes 6 hours. 6 hours on the road won't cost much, even when you're carrying cows. Of course, building this highway wasn't easy. Harsh weather conditions such as frequent sandstorms, poor access to water, electricity, communication signals, and everyday necessities made building a highway through the desert a real challenge. Just the fact that the crews leveled 32 tall sand dunes and filled in 28 low-lying areas between other dunes says a lot. And by the way, these weren't just small sand hills. Here in this photo, the workers are working on the biggest sand dune in the project with an estimated sand volume of 42 million cubic feet. And this job must have been really tough, even with the air conditioner in the operator's cabin. I hope the air conditioners were actually there, because with the air temperature at 104 degrees Fahrenheit, it's impossible to survive. And still, the dunes were leveled, the lowlands were filled, and the construction was completed. The finished road surface consists of a sand base with geotextile fabric laid on top, followed by natural gravel and solid crushed stone. Then hot mix asphalt was poured, and finally the asphalt surface was laid. The whole road is smooth, traffic density is low, so the car moves smoothly and the speed can match highway speeds in mainland China. That is 62 miles per hour. Part of the road is even adapted for speeds of over 93 miles per hour. This is an impressive achievement, especially considering that the sands in this desert are shifting. In fact, the Taklamakan is the second largest desert in the world with shifting sands. About 85% of it is made up of moving sand dunes, and some of them rise 650 to 1,000 feet. Naturally, powerful dust storms happen here, and then I thought I should probably explain what shifting sands actually are. A sand dune forms when the wind blows a lot of loose sand onto an obstacle. The heaviest grains settle on it and start to form a small ridge or mound. As long as the wind is blowing, the sandbank keeps growing and eventually turns into a dune. The wind also makes some dunes migrate. The wind blows, sand builds up, and eventually the dune becomes so steep that it collapses under its own weight. The sand on top starts sliding down the dune slope like an avalanche. As it slides down, it piles up on the other side, and the dune kind of walks, keeping its original shape. So even though the highway was built using a grid to control the dunes, which was the most effective method decades ago, many sections are still buried under shifting sand, which moves at a rate of 16 feet per year. Something had to be done about this, so China decided to plant more vegetation. They went with rose willows, saxaul, and buckthorn, choosing them over 10 years of experiments. The trees with small leaves and a maximum height of 6 feet turned out to be the best fit for life in the desert, as they lose water slowly and are resistant to dry conditions. Also, the overly salty water which they managed to get from the dug wells doesn't harm these plants at all. They did the same thing with the old highways through the desert, the ones built back in the 90s. Now they had to repeat the same approach, but this time with the new highway to prevent it from getting buried by the shifting sands. In addition, the builders installed 624 million square feet of grass grids and more than 560 miles of barriers along the road. But the problem isn't just the sand. The sharp temperature fluctuations I've already mentioned mean that during the day in the desert it can be over 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and then at night it can drop below freezing, repeating in a cycle. All this can cause cracks in the concrete and significantly affect the road's lifespan. However, after many years of research, Chinese scientists and engineers have managed to find suitable solutions to deal with even the harshest desert conditions. All right, so the road is built and plants have been planted along it. But what's next? It's still a desert. There's still critically little rainfall. How is the vegetation supposed to survive? It can't just pump water from wells by itself. Well, the Chinese engineers thought of everything. In June of this year, it was announced that the highway had generated more than 5 million kilowatts of green energy, while also implementing sand control and environmental protection. As part of the project, 86 photovoltaic power plants were installed along the highway. They generate electricity for irrigating over 7,660 acres of ecological protection forests along the road. This is a comprehensive alternative to pump irrigation using diesel power, as it produces literally zero carbon emissions. The power plant generates about 11,000 kilowatts of electricity a day, and all 109 wells along the highway use clean energy for pumping water and irrigation. The green project is expected to reduce diesel consumption by about 1,000 tons and cut carbon dioxide emissions by roughly 3,410 tons per year. Not a bad bonus. All right, the highway through the desert's not a big deal. China built them 30 years ago. But what about the railway? In 2022, China completed the world's first railway loop stretching 1,685 miles. The Hotan-Ruoqiang Railway, which connects the city of Hotan in the southwest of Xinjiang with the town of Ruoqiang in the southeast, will take you from one point to the other in just under 11 and a half hours. Trains travel at 75 miles per hour and pass through 22 stations. By the way, in the future, the railway line might get electrified. 65% of the railway track is threatened by wind and sand, and engineers have been working on this issue since construction started in December 2018. 5 bridges were built with a total length of 31 miles, over which trains ran while the sand moved beneath them. The builders created 538 million square feet of grass grids and planted 13 million sand-loving plants like sea buckthorn to protect the railroad. It's expected that the new line will improve the railway connection in the western border areas, making it easier for people and goods to travel, and will also boost the development of regions along its routes. This should lead to stronger ethnic unity, enhanced national defense, and also help revive rural areas. According to the statistics, since the commissioning of the railway loop, about 33.5 million tons of cargo have been transported through the freight hubs in a year. So railway service is really needed here, and it really makes life easier. But why do we keep talking about just one desert? There's also the Gobi, and they're building a giant solar park there. In August 2009, the construction of China's first major solar power station began. 6 years later, solar panels had spread much deeper into the Gobi Desert, where there's no shortage of both sunlight and land. Just recently, China hooked up its biggest solar power plant to the grid, built where a former coal mine once stood, right in the desert. Mengshi Blue Ocean Photovoltaic Power Station, located in the Otog front banner of Ordos, Inner Mongolia, was commissioned on November 5, 2024. With a huge installed capacity of 3 gigawatts and over 5.9 million solar panels, the station will generate about 5.7 billion kilowatt hours of electricity per year. That's enough to power 2 million households. And this isn't the only project like this in China's desert. Another project located in the northern foothills of the Tian Shan Mountains at over 2,600 feet above sea level in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region looks impressive. A vast area of 1.2 million solar panels stretches across the desert, forming an impressive blue sea that absorbs the region's abundant sunlight. As part of the project, solar energy is turned into clean electricity and supplied to factories, businesses, and households in Xinjiang and beyond. Next to the solar panel, there's the Super Power Bank made up of 216 batteries capable of storing 600,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. The energy storage system helps balance the power grid, charging during low demand periods and discharging during peak hours. You know how it works, I've mentioned it a few times already. And there's also a nice bonus. The amount of carbon dioxide emissions reduced as a result of the project is equivalent to planting 4,800 trees. I guess installing solar panels and batteries in the desert is still easier than growing plants. By the way, another similar power plant, Al Kharsa, with a capacity of 800 megawatts, was built using Chinese technology. It became the first power plant in Qatar to run on non-fossil fuel and was independently constructed by Power China Guizhou Engineering Company. Qatar has opened its first solar power plant using Chinese technologies and equipment. Located in the desert region of Al Kharsar, the facility is called one of the largest in the Middle East. It has about 2 million solar panels provided by the Chinese solar giant Longyi. It's estimated that the project could reduce carbon dioxide emissions by about 900,000 tons per year. But in order to make all this happen and build the power plant with the panels, the workers had to face a number of difficulties. I mean, what else can you call a 6-month period of extremely hot weather? According to local labor laws, open work is not allowed from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in such conditions. As a result, they had to organize night shifts on the site, which caused major problems for safety management. Not to mention the strong wind that blew at any time of day or night, which they also had to take into account. But if you think using deserts as huge solar energy generators is a good idea, well, not exactly. Yes, the harshest deserts in the world seem like the best places on Earth to gather solar energy. Deserts are vast, relatively flat, and never short on sunlight. The 10 largest solar power plants in the world are already located in deserts or dry regions, and if we turn the Sahara into a giant solar farm, we could fully meet the global demand for electricity. However, there's one big but. While the dark surfaces of solar panels soak up most of the sunlight hitting them, only about 15% of that energy gets converted into electricity. The rest goes back into the environment as heat. In other words, solar panels get seriously hot. That's why the large area of solar panels will absorb a lot of extra energy and release it as heat. And if we build truly massive solar farms, the heat radiated back from such a vast surface will be redistributed by air currents in the atmosphere, having regional and even global effects on the climate. Basically, it's like turning on a heater the Earth never asked for. But let's get back to China and its fight against deserts. There's one more way. This is a project that I mentioned not too long ago, and yet it cannot be left without additional attention. That's because it's a process through which China is literally reclaiming land from the deserts for construction. I'm talking about planting trees. In the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region in northwest China, desert encroachment has been a long-standing issue, and overgrazing has only made things worse. This leads to sandstorms, dust pollution, and other consequences that make it hard for people to live and develop the country. How can we talk about increasing residential areas when the desert's taking over even the land people already consider their own? Something had to be done. So in the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region alone, 79,941 acres of degraded land were improved by restoring vegetation. A total of 8,158 people got involved in planting, tending, and keeping an eye on the new forests. As a result, wind erosion went down, and it reduced about 3,396 tons of soil per year. Back in 1978, the Chinese government kicked off the 3 North Shelter Belt project, aiming to plant millions of trees along the 2,800-mile border of the advancing desert in northern China. The ambitious project should be finished by 2050. The most important news over the past few days is that I've come up with something again. Eco World Cup. As you've already figured out, turning a desert into a power plant isn't exactly the best idea. Still, this way of generating energy is a top priority nowadays. For example, that very solar power station China built for Qatar provided energy for the FIFA World Cup in 2022. This facility ensured a steady supply of clean energy throughout the entire event. Not a bad test run for a power station. As I already mentioned, this is the first project in the country that doesn't rely on fossil fuels to generate electricity. By the way, it cost $417 million, and thanks to the project, Qatar managed to meet its commitment to hosting the World Cup with zero carbon emissions. Every year, this energy facility is expected to generate about 1.8 billion kilowatt hours of clean electricity thanks to its 2 million solar panels, which I've already mentioned. That's enough to cover the needs of 300,000 Qatari households. On top of that, this plant is one of a kind, boasting the largest active tracking system in the world. This system can pinpoint the sun's position in real time, ensuring the solar panels are perfectly aligned. Another advantage is the double-sided photovoltaic cells, which allow collecting the maximum amount of solar energy, a very useful perk. Traffic lights for camels. But let's get back to China and its deserts. Usually when we talk about huge expanses of sand, you don't really imagine running into a traffic jam among the dunes. But in China, that's totally possible. The jams are caused by camels. This is the case around Mingsha Mountain and the nearby oasis. It's not exactly a problem, but the local authorities took notice and came up with a creative solution to keep visitors from becoming annoyed. They set up the world's first traffic lights for camels. How did this situation even come about? The thing is, camels are a popular mode of transport for tourists. People want something exotic, and China gets plenty of visitors. In 2020, Mingsha Mountain saw 3.7 million tourists, and 42% of them opted to ride camels. So in 2021, the authorities decided to regulate camel traffic. Traffic lights for animals serve the same purpose as regular ones, letting pedestrians cross the road safely. On one side, they show the familiar green symbol of a human figure signaling it's safe to go, but on the other, you might spot a two-humped camel figure. And yes, these lights were installed in large numbers so pedestrians can safely cross roads between the many groups of animals. There are about 2,000 of them in the park. Secret Town. What else can you find in the deserts of China? Like, for example, a mysterious settlement that you won't hear about on maps, in the media, or on TV. This city, hidden from most Chinese people, lies deep in the Gobi Desert. It was founded back in the 1950s during the Cold War as part of a top-secret national program to develop the first atomic bomb for the new communist superpower. The ghost town spread across 500 acres of sand, but it used to be buzzing with life. Originally, it was built solely as a home for workers of a government nuclear plant. There was no need for public transportation or taxis in this place. It didn't even have traffic lights. Actually, they really weren't necessary there. You could walk from one end of the town to the other in just 15 minutes. But in 2005, Town 404, as they call it, was abandoned by its residents by order of the authorities. The town was so close-knit that everybody knew each other by face. Not surprising, really. People either worked together at the local factory or were related to someone who did. Despite its modest size, this little world had everything a big city could offer. A dance hall, a library, public baths, and even a vinegar factory. Plus, there were preschools, schools, and candy stores. Why the residents were moved out isn't specified, but now all that's left of the bustling life are the empty buildings. Martian Desert. In the Gobi Desert, there's a $61 million base designed to imitate life on Mars. It includes living modules and aims to support research on the red planet while also attracting tourists. The project, as Beijing authorities see it, should inspire China's future astronauts to explore deep space. But why was a desert chosen for such an important project? It's simple. The red rocks and land in the Gobi resemble the landscapes of Mars. At the base, participants in the program will explore the possibilities of living there and conducting scientific experiments, the value of which will be assessed based on their contribution to global research. As for the tourist value of the place, visitors will definitely enjoy it here. The project features two parts. One is open to everyone and is a theme park dedicated to Mars, and the other is an educational and recreational camp that offers visitors the chance to experience conditions that are as close as possible to those on Mars. The Martian Park includes 9 cabins, including living quarters, an airlock, and a mission control center, which could be used in China's future Mars colonies. There's also an area where visitors can try on spacesuits and walk on the Martian surface. A park representative pointed out that the base also includes several sections showing how to survive in the extreme conditions of Mars. I don't know about you, but I'd love to visit. Greenbelt. Today I briefly mentioned how China plans to fight deserts with plants, but there's actually a lot more to discuss. The authorities in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in northwest China reported that the Taklamakan Desert is completely surrounded by a protective green strip. The plan is for it to prevent the desert from spreading and save a lot of land. The length of the Greenbelt, that's what the project was called, reached 1,893 miles. The project took 40 years to complete, and by the end of 2023, the Greenbelt had reached 1,716 miles. The remaining 177 miles passed through the southern desert regions, where builders constantly faced strong winds and sandstorms. However, they got the job done, and the final stretch of the barrier was completed with the planting of several types of plants, including poplar, socksaw, and red willow. The project to combat the expansion of the Taklamakan Desert is actually part of China's broader program to create green shields in the north of the country, which is recognized as the largest reforestation and anti-desertification program in the world. Since the project's inception, China has significantly increased its forest area by as much as 79 million acres. If the country keeps going at this pace, the massive greening project will cover 13 regions of the country, with a total area of over 1.5 million square miles, which will make up more than 40% of China's total territory. You owe me a like right now. See you later.